to the last reefer, this was a solid piece without gutters, without a handle. So it's very difficult.
Definitely.
So how it goes on makes sense. The handle's going to be up, and these prongs are going to go down, so you can set them inside. Set them inside the hole there. And then can you guys see this that don't know? Then you're going to turn this right here, and then we'll lock it into place, okay? And if it's not locked into place, when you turn the patient to the prone position, it will wobble some, okay? And then once again, you're going to adjust the feet here, with this adjust up and down, okay? You want the patient's foot to be flat up against there. You want the patient's foot to be flat up against here. Okay, when we talk about where do you see the breakdown the most often, it's on the face and on the feet. So once the patient's in the prone position, and you open the bottom hatch, you can actually do range of motion with the patient. If I come and help you with your nursing care, a lot of times I'm going to say, have we done this, have we done that, have we done range of motion? So you want to try to do that. In addition to, if you're trying a supine trial with the patient, there's lots of different pads in here. If you're doing a supine trial, in this pack there are these, I call them pizza wedges, okay? Looks like this. I will actually put it under the patient's calf and offload their heels, so that in the Rotoprone they're like this and the heel's totally offloaded, so the heel is not touching the bed at all. So once you start supine trials where you're doing 2 to 3 hours in the supine position, this is a pressure redistribution surface, but it's not one that I would choose to lay on for a really long period of time on my back. And it's nice and soft, but it's not going to distribute pressure in your high contact area. So I try to offload the heels on here, okay? And those are in the bag right here. So build it from the inside out. What goes next?
The patient's already there.
They're already in there. I've already put the inside in. Now
Put the side?
right. So y'all can put them in. Right.
So we're going to put a side in?
So you drop the ball in the socket. The narrow end goes in first. The narrow end doesn't have to go in first. The narrow end just has to go to the foot of the bed.
So does this go in?
It's going to go to the outside because it's going to wrap the arm here. So pick it up and drop the ball here in the socket. Okay? And then if you pull up there, you can see that even though it doesn't feel like it, it's locked in place. Okay? So it has to go to the inside here or to the inside here. So I just want you to see, you're on the outside, and you're on the outside, but let's put yours on the inside because I just want you to see how differently just that slight movement angles it has. So look at this. See how this is really going to cut in, and this is more straight up and down. Okay, so this is going to be a person that's got a really small, it's really small on top, and maybe a little bit wider on the bottom. Okay, you want to make sure that they're both the same, that they're the same bilaterally. So if this is on the inside here, it needs to be on the inside there. Okay,
And this
so
adjusts the width between the two.
this adjusts the width, and before you put the patient in, you want to open it nice and wide so that everything works, because it's really hard to adjust this or to adjust the side rails if it's cranked all the way in. Plus, most patients are not that smooth. Okay, and then this is another thing that they didn't know this morning. These pieces are in the bag, these little U-shaped pieces right here. So if I have a really tall patient, I am going to want to, I'm going to want to extend this piece all the way out like this, okay? And then when it's extended, their adipose tissue is going to migrate into here, or they can migrate into against this bar right here. So I want to protect it like this. If I have a short patient, if you'll pull that up and push it down, I can shorten the side rail. The main thing is that I want to have 2 finger breaths underneath the armpit, because I don't want pressure in the brachial plexus where I put nerve damage and then vessel damage there. Okay, so I want to make sure that I have 2 finger breaths. If I don't, I want to shorten it. But if it comes way down here on me, say I'm in there and this pad is way down here on me, okay, I'm going to want to lengthen it, because as I start to rotate the patient, if I have support here and I have support here, when I start to rotate the patient, what's going to take the bulk of the stress? The C-spine, right, as I start to pull the patient. So I want this to be all the way up, as far up the thorax as I can get it, so that the patient is well supported by the frame and not by their neck, okay? So you can extend it or shorten it, but just make sure you have 2 finger breaths underneath the armpit, okay? All right. Then if you have a patient that's starting to slide down, and you pull the patient up, you want to make sure that at the same time that you're pulling, when you pull the patient up, that you move the foot pads up as well, otherwise they're just going to slide right back down, okay? So you we've gone from the inside out. Now we need to go from the bottom up, right? So the first bottom up sweep is going to be your proning pack. So we're going to pad the shins, the hips, and then the chest, okay? So you can use any of those pads. They're all labeled. They're all in that bag down there. They're all labeled of where you should put them. Just ignore it and put them where you want to put them, okay? So for somebody that's not really tall, you could probably use these on my shins, okay? Or you could use these. You can use these on the shins, but you would want to use the same size pad so you have equal support on either side, okay? So these are not the same size. So I would put this maybe on the hip, and you want to palpate for the hip bone. If somebody has a large penis, you may want to lift the penis up and put this pad underneath sideways. Because if you think about the patient in the prone position, if their hips are not padded, I don't know about you guys, but if I wake up and I'm laying on my belly and I've been there for a long period of time, you have that pain, that low back pain, like because you have lordosis when you're laying like that. So I pad the shins, and then I'll pad the hips. Okay, then after I pad the hips, that's where I use the abdominal binder, because I'll put a dry flow chucks on the patient's chest, and then I'll use this because this is going to secure your hip pads from moving around. A lot of times people would put this on and then these on top. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's kind of like when you took the NCLEX, what's the better choice, right? So the better choice is to put them underneath because they're not going to slide around. They're going to stay more secure here. If they have a femoral line or a quinton calf, then you can use in the bag. I was the bag inventory queen as well, so I decide what goes in every bag around the country. And so I use this ear pad, because us nurses are so smart, as I put that pad right here. So if I have a quinton, I can put the quinton out of it, and so when they're ready for dialysis, I've got my line, I can visualize it, I can see if I need a dressing change, and then if I have a femoral line, I can the same. I don't put the pressure on the line and then mess my line up and dampen my waveform and then lose my art line as well, okay? So if you have a femoral line, of whatever kind of femoral line that you have there, I use this pad instead of this pad on the hip, and then you can actually augment with a second pad on top of it if you need to, okay? All right, so that means we're going to park for 30 minutes. Okay, so after you've parked for 30 minutes, it's going to beep at you and say, move it. Okay, so now I'm going to crank the patient in because I have my side rails on, which is just moving this to the right, get the patient in there nice and snug. Okay, the past couple of times I've come in when I haven't been here for a placement, like every pad in the bag is on the patient. So we've got the wedgies in here, the pizza wedges in here, just stuff on top of the head. You don't have to do that. You need 3 pads. It's okay. So you can put it here, here, and then I don't want anything on top of the head because a lot of our patients are febrile and I want them to have that insensible heat loss. We don't have to have a pad on top of there. Okay, so shins, hips, and then you guys connect this over there. Anchor the pads down. I'll put a dry wedge, a dry flow on the chest, and then the chest wedge. So the chest wedge has 3 and triple thickness. So earlier today, even some of the people that are pros, like Roger, did not realize that this is triple padded. So if you can't close that chest pack, it's really, really hard to close, and you've got triple thickness in here, you can just pull this open, this Velcro open, take one of the pads out. So if you have a barrel-chested COPD or somebody that's maybe has had a breast augmentation and they have implants in, you might want to take it out, or if the patient is even really thin, sometimes you might want to add padding to it, okay? So a couple of things that were brought up this morning, the chest pack always slides out, okay? So if the chest pack is sliding out all the time, a couple things you can do. If it's a really large-breasted woman, I will get the dry flow pads and I'll put it horizontally and actually tuck it. So I'll pull the breast tissue up and tuck the pad beside here, and then because if that breast tissue goes up under your underneath your arms, and for those of you that aren't in your 40s, it's going to happen to you someday. So that's a bad place for breakdown, right? When the breast tissue slips underneath there and then it's all wrinkled up underneath there, and you can get some blisters and some breakdown there. So I pull all the breast tissue up here, put the dry flow there, and then put the chest pack on. Okay? All right. So. Okay. All right, so now I've gone from the inside out and the bottom up. Now I'm going to go the bottom up again, and this time I'm going to put the side packs up, okay? So shins, hips, chest, okay? So envision, if you close your eyes, flipping this patient over, they're supported here, they're supported in their midsection, they're supported on the front of their legs, so they should lay just like this, okay? All right, so now I'm going to move the side packs up, and I'll come over on Catherine's side to show her first. So if you have not done the Rotoprone, or it's been a long time since you've had the Rotoprone, or if you're a type A person like me, so you don't have a good relationship with the Rotoprone, right? And you can't figure out how to get these, can't get these things down, right? You can't figure out. All good relationships have give and take. So you want to give before you take, okay? So you're going to push, give, and then pull, take, okay? And it will come down. If you cannot get it down, it's because you're taking too much away from the relationship. You're pulling on it. So you have to give, okay? Edify before you take, okay? All right. And then you open this up. Like you're getting ready to tell somebody you do not like the gift they bought you. You're so sweet to me, baby. I just love you. Where's the receipt? Okay, there you go. See, just like that. Now these slide up and down here. So a couple things. You want to keep it off their knees, keep it off their bellies, and then this one always needs to be up to the very top. Remember, we're supporting the thorax here. We're doing the same right here. I don't want this all the way down, otherwise the patient's body is supporting the weight, not the frame of the surface. Okay.
So it's shins, hips, and then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I go from the bottom up. So I'm going to let you guys do this because I've only done it 8 million times. So you want to keep it off of the top of their toes because their toes are going to be right here. So I would slide this either up, right, and I would try to keep it off the dorsal part of their foot as well. I don't want it on top of their foot right here. So if I have to have it there, then I'm going to put a piece of Mephilex or a leave-in or something on the top part of the foot to protect that direct contact with that dart. Okay, so I'd move it up as far as I could, or if the patient was short like me, then I would move these all the way up and the pad would fit underneath. Okay, so I'm going to give and take, move my pad, and put it underneath the patient's foot. Okay, or you can move it up to put it on the top here. Okay. So this is as far as this one will go, which means it would go right over the toes, okay? All right, so I'm going to let you guys do that. Connect them all. You're going to leave the knees open and the bellies open.
Well, this is going to come down then. So we're going to move the foot.
So you want to make sure the belly open is open as well.
Oops, sorry.
It's very important not to put that on top of their belly. There's been studies that show intra-abdominal hypertension, or for example, patients with abdominal compartment syndrome, that once you decompress the gut, then usually the respiratory status improves, right? So if I tighten that as tight as I can on the patient's belly, it's going to shove all of that intra-abdominal pressure into your transmural pressure, and you use more and more and more. People are going to have really high airway pressures and all that. So keep it off their belly. Give and take. Good job. So I'm not going to, so remember we've gone, let me show you something about the chest wedge, okay? What they were saying earlier, one of the problems that I seem to have is every time I have a patient is this wedge always slides out, okay? So I'm going to put it square across the patient's chest, and then instead of just like close it like you normally would, go ahead and bring that one over here. And so when I pull this in, it creates this cleavage here. This is not good cleavage. I don't want cleavage here. So I'm going to pull this tight. Next you're going to pull the handle. Pull it up and over, and then pull your super tight, like that. And then I'm going to snap it, but I'm not going to pull it. I'm not going to pull this really tight yet, because what I need to do now is I need to do my drive-by to make sure everything's through the head of the bed and everything's through the foot of the bed. Any extra lines, tubing, whatever it is that you've added cannot go to the outside hoop. Okay. So if I make sure I've done my drive-by, everything looks good, I can push this black pin, and then my face pack, and I'm going to let y'all put that on. The patient's trace is really easy. You just put the face pack on. Kissing the face. Just barely has to kiss the face.
One thing that I get confused about, or not confused about, is that, you know, whenever we flip them, after we've done this, their faces shift, and then the ET tube is
Goes one side or the other.
Yeah.
So you want this to be snug on their head, but not tight. So I'm not trying to stabilize their C-spine.
Well, I always try to make sure I see their ears.
Right.
On each side, and then they're kind of square.
Right.
And then we do the twill, you know, to try to secure.
Right.
That.
So for me, a lot of times when I come in for you guys that have been here, whatever, around our patients, a lot of times I'll come up here and go, the patient's shoulders need to come over. So the reason why their head is